Welcome, folks, inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. It's getting a little chilly out. It's time for the People's Pundit hoodies and sweatshirts. I'm wearing the sweatshirt today. Super, super cozy. Links in the description. If you like the video, don't forget to like it, share it, subscribe, share far and wide with your friends. Like and share, like and share. Oh, man, this is going to be good today because there's a lot of technical stuff I can't wait to get into with them. So Sean Parnell is going to come by. We're going to talk about just the utter chaos in the Middle East and around the world. You know, as somebody who served, wanted to get his point of view. I love having guys like him, Joe Kent on, and others. You know, there's always these Twitter experts. They know everything about everything. You know, all these years later, what is it? Crying out loud. It's 22 years. 22 years. Still haven't figured out how to deal with this problem. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know why. You know, I want to get into the polling. I'll leave that segment for Sean. But the great Sean Parnell, by the way, that's who I'm talking about. Should be the senator for Pennsylvania right now. Thank you, establishment. And of course, we'll talk about the Speaker House with him as well. We'll talk about that as well. But before I get into the polling, you know, I don't know why Israel wants to play the PR game anymore. Like the West does this PR game. And this is why we don't win conflicts anymore. You cannot run political wars. You can't do it. Look, the older I get, the less appetite I have for war at all. But if you're going to do it, then do it. And do it right. I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little old. I come from a different generation. You can't like half beat the enemy in a submission. All of these so-called civil rights organizations and all of these so-called public health groups and all of these so-called humanitarian groups, they're so full of crap. They've always been full of crap. The UN is totally full of crap. They harbor terrorists. The NGOs harbor terrorists. They harbor extremists. Anyone they view to be victims, the Western guilt kicks in. UN soldiers look the other way. When Afghani commanders do disgusting things to little children, I'm just so tired of it. And if you're going to get into a conflict with it, then just do it. And stop playing by the rules. What rules? What rules? Hiding behind patients? Children? Women? Non-combatants? What rules? I feel like I have to teach a little lesson here because it's a lesson I had to learn as a pollster. I'm the only one still playing by the rules. Or at some point I was anyway. All right, but we'll leave that for Sean. Let's get into there has been now some new polling that's come out showing a totally different picture. Trump v. Biden. We always talk, we heard all this talk. Outlier this, outlier that. ABC's an outlier. No, ABC is just polling a wider audience. And the non-likely voter electorate is more pro-Trump and more pro-Republican, but definitely more pro-Trump than the likely voter electorate. I know that's a lot. That's a lot for people to grasp because it's never been like that in their entire lifetime. But that is the way it is right now. And it's from a pollster who is hired by another political firm, by a political candidate. Its firm is hired by a political candidate, which to me is unethical. Can't poll nationally for a media outlet and also work for one of the presidential candidates. There's something very wrong with that. I know that people have been doing it forever because this firm is partnering with another firm to jointly conduct this survey, which in fact also polled for a political candidate in 2016. Her name was Hillary Clinton. It's crazy. It's insane. Anyway, they do it. Everyone's got different standards. You have them, they're trying to regain their credibility after an entire cycle worth of ludicrous results. And then another one that really does need to be spoken about because they're a staple and they've been around for a very long time. And because they have been around for a very long time, they've screwed a lot up, especially in presidential elections in recent cycles. They have a known problem with certain weights, and they happen to be the same demographics and the same variables that have caused pollsters so many problems for so long. That being said, that's what's causing the exaggeration of their vote margin, but they got vote preference roughly right. All right, so enough talk. Let's just bring them in. All right, so of course I'm talking about the Marist poll, which when RFK first announced that he was going to run as an independent, some polling, I think his pollster came out and said actually he hurts Trump by about a point more. Another pollster came out, Republican firm, said, nah, actually hurts Biden by about a point. And it's been back and forth. Then when we did, and it's really not been back and forth. That's the way it was. And then some others came out and said RFK hurts Biden. We did our polling, and I think I have made my case. It doesn't matter overall, even though overall it does show. It goes from Trump +2 to Trump +1 when you round, but it doesn't matter. We tried to go inside the numbers. And very clearly, RFK's vote is not a Democratic vote. It's not. So now we have the first poll that comes out that kind of confirms that, but they're exaggerating it. And I'm going to explain why they're exaggerating it a little bit. Okay. So first, let's read it. The Marist poll has basically blown every election in recent memory. I'm not kidding. You really can't find an election in which Marist did a good job. Unless you can find like a midterm where they did a national poll, came roughly close to the overall national results, but they didn't right away. They herded. And it wasn't until the final couple weeks of the campaign that they got relatively close. Before that, you'll see crap like this. Democrat +7. Folks, okay. They don't weight correctly. First of all, they argued with the industry for years that they're not going to change their weighting methodology and they're not going to factor for education or geography. And they fought the industry even when the likes of Nate Cohen at the New York Times and others were like, hey, by the way, those people who are arguing geography and education matters are right. Partisan weights are not enough. Personally, again, you know how I feel about waiting for party. If you do everything else right, you shouldn't be waiting for party. You should know that the electorate is going to talk to you and tell you how partisan one way or another it's going to be. You should not be telling the electorate how partisan it's going to be. However, that being said, our polling has been slightly Republican nationally. Last month, it was like 0.6. And not even last month. The poll we released, 10 days ago. Was 0.6D or something. It was a D+1 if you rounded. It was like Democrat 38, Republican 37, Independent, other remainder. But there is just no way on planet Earth you're going to find a D+7, a D+9 sample. If you do, there's something wrong. ABC, who's polling the wider electorate, they're getting between R+1 and R+4. I know that sounds crazy to people because of the way things are, but the country is moving to the right in partisan affiliation. It has been for a while. Does it have times when it kicks back? Yeah. But we haven't found Democrats since Joe Biden was sworn in as president of the United States, just after, which is normal. That tends to happen. When a new president is sworn in, people start saying, yeah, actually, I identify with the president's party. That's a trend that has gone back for decades. Now, it doesn't always mean that party has the advantage, but you can see that it'll pull in that direction. The country's really D+9, but Ronald Reagan's elected, so all of a sudden it's like D+2. I'm a Republican. Even though with registrations, they're not really changing. It's a fluid movement through affiliation. If you come up with a D+7 or D+9 right now, it's because you have a problem like Marist is known to have. Sorry, guys. Everybody in the industry knows you have this issue. You're the only ones who refuse to acknowledge it. There is simply no chance that you could get, and that's the three-way, but in the two-way, they actually have Biden up by 3, which is defendable if they were within reason. But they have Biden at 49%. Biden's approval rating is in the 30s. No president runs that far ahead of their approval rating unless you disgustingly slant the party affiliation toward that president. If I went into MarketSite right now, do you know what I would have to make the electorate in order to get Biden to 49%, ladies and gentlemen? D plus 11. So either two things are happening. Either Marist skewed it on purpose and they're waiting for party and not telling people exactly how it's done, and they skewed it D plus 7 to 9 or whatever it is, or they have yet to fix their education and geography issues, and that is causing their sample to be too Democratic. Now, because that's actually what I think is going on, and because they did look at Kennedy's vote, 16%. We haven't really nowhere near. The generic is roughly that. I think we're right and other pollsters are wrong. I think other pollsters have him too high. In the phone, he's almost nothing. It's basically an online collection that drove him up to 10% roughly. But because of the way they skew with education and geography, it's going to skew towards more Biden voters, and those who are not Biden voters are going to be more of that vote that, would split off to Kennedy. So, for instance, it's really kind of the same thing if you look at the vote preference. If you go into the Echelon Insights poll, for instance, it's just when they had the three-way with Kennedy, they made their I don't know that they made it, but their electorate is 1 point more Republican. If you do that, then you will see Kennedy pulling slightly more from Biden. If your electorate is too Democratic and too educated, because he doesn't have any educated support, it will pull from Trump disproportionately. His share of the vote will rise probably more than it's actually going to be. And you will see Trump fall into like the 30s like this, while Biden hangs in the mid 40s. But again, that's not reality. In the real world, there will never be an electorate at a national level, not against Trump anyway, where Democrats have a 7 to 9 point advantage. That's not going to happen. That didn't even happen for Barack Obama in his reelection, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know how many registrations Democrats have lost since then? In terms of registration and identity, the country has shifted to the right. That's true. And it's just that Republicans haven't been competent enough to seize it. So what I'm saying here is they're right about vote preference and they're right about who RFK hurts, but they're exaggerating it because they cannot. I don't listen. I never like to just outwardly trash another pollster, but I got to tell you, I shamed the hell out of Quinnipiac, and eventually they changed their methodology. We all know they did because they even use our vendors now. So I guess I'm going to have to do this with Marist too. If you suck year after year and you blow an election year after year, and everybody knows and everybody talks about it, it's their education weights, it's their geography, it's their data collection mode. They have artifacts in the polling themselves. It's their methodology creating artifacts. You have to retool your methodology. If you don't, and you consistently favor one party year after year, even though you're wrong, we can only conclude that you were doing that on purpose. This is intentional. There's no other explanation. This is an outlier. Forget about the ABC News Washington Post poll. Marist is an outlier. Another poll that just came out right after Marist is conducted by Ron DeSantis' pollster firm, by the way. Ron DeSantis' and Hart Research, which polls for Hillary Rodham Clinton. And they have Trump up by 4. Worse. It actually shows that let's look at the support levels. Forget about the margin. Who's up, who's down. All right. Trump is beating Biden by 4 points in this one. Biden's approval rating is only 37%. You do not have a 37% approval rating and then get 49% of the vote. When does that happen? Like never. Approval rating, obviously, even though, we're in a different era where it's gathering ballots, it's not persuasion. you're still not going to be able to outperform your approval rating by 12 points. You understand that's what Maris is asking you to believe? That's nuts. Or you just made the electorate too Democratic. Which one is more likely, folks? Anyway, if you look at what's in, forget it, here's the approval, foreign policy, the economy, it's all abysmal. And it's generally in line with everybody else. You don't get sub 40% approval ratings without losing large chunks of your base. And that's what's happening here, said Mika Roberts, partner at Public Opinion Strategies, the Republican pollster for the survey. He called the data, quote, distressing numbers for a president facing re-election. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And then Richard Hart, in comparison, is bringing up, it's Campbell. It says there are real generational splits on this question. Democrats have increasing their sympathies and it's what I'm going to lead into talking with Sean with. There's definitely this growing pro-Palestine sentiment. There just is. And I know that I'm not sure they understand there's a difference between Hamas and Palestine. I'm not sure they have discern it, that there was any difference. But let's go back to the margin. 46-42, 12% undecided. Both pollsters said that given Biden's poor numbers, Trump's lead would likely be larger if not for widespread reservations about the former president himself. The indictment, you're going to get people who tell you they're undecided. Even though they don't like Biden, they'll tell you Trump was a better president, but they're going to tell you they're undecided because of the indictments and everything. Why do you think Jack Smith has been sent on this mission with the rest of these clowns and this clown show? Because they need to try to put doubt into the minds of certain voters. That's their job. Otherwise, this would be a lot bigger Trump lead. But it just says, yet some of the data in the poll suggests that both independents and undecided voters would break for Trump. So regardless. All right, so two polls, two dueling sets of, realities. If you go into the Public Opinion Strategies poll, the CNBC poll, let's just call it that, the CNBC poll, you will see that this is not some ridiculous, unrealistic Democratic advantage in the turnout. That's just not... The it's just crazy. It's every year we have to do the same thing. It's getting rather monotonous, Maris. Change your methodology, stop embarrassing yourself, and let's move on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank my guests coming up right now for making the short time to come on. In short notice, got a lot going on, and I'm really grateful because we really I value his opinion on this stuff. And I'm just probably nobody better to ask, honestly. But yeah, let me bring him on if he's ready. Thumbs up. You ready? You ready? You ready? He's ready. All right, let's bring him on. Sean Parnell, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Sean is a veteran. But in my mind, I should just introduce you, Sean, as the should-be senator from Pennsylvania. Right?
Oh, thank you, Rich.
Me off so much, Sean.
Thank you.
You would, the country could use you. I mean, I'm not sure we deserve you at this point.
Well, thank you for saying that. First of all, it's great to be back with Savage Rich. To your viewers and your listeners who are watching this, you know how I feel about Rich because you come on my show like every couple of weeks now, but I do think that generally speaking, polling is a very difficult and terrible business overall. But as pollsters go, I mean, I think that you are the top of the top. And I think that's why you have such a great base of viewers for your show. And so I love talking with you because I think you're just the best. And I was talking to Brock, who's my producer, prior to coming on the show. And I was like shooting him a quick text message because he's like a huge People's Pundit fan, my producer, Brock. He listens to your show every day.
Brock, man.
And he bought a People's Pundit shirt. And I'm like, you should rock that on the Wendy Bell radio program. And I was like texting him, you know how you like abbreviate on text messages? I was like, Brock, you should wear your pee-pee shirt. And I was like, whoa, no, that doesn't work. So I had to spell out completely People's Pundit. And so he said he's already rocking the Wendy his People's Pundit shirt on the Wendy Bell radio program. So you're ahead of the game, man. If Brock likes you, you're in good company.
That's great, Brock. Thanks so much, buddy. I really appreciate it. Tell me where to send it and I'll shoot you the sweater for the winter, man. These sweaters are super cozy. And by the way, somebody was just praising Wendy to me the other day, actually. Somebody was just praising Wendy up and down. Really was saying that she's, such a rock star. Love her. Yeah, she does really well. For those who aren't maybe in the area, check her out. She's great. But let me ask you, Sean, broadly first, because I wanted to go over some things with you. We had the issue with the hospital attack, which we have, new video on. I personally, I'm looking at it. Is it possible that there's another angle that maybe shows it better? Sure. But it does look like to me a misfired rocket, and that's inevitably what happened here. But broadly, before we get into this, what are your thoughts generally as somebody who served? I look at, everything that's going on, Beirut right now. I'm going to play some clips with that. They told us Donald Trump was going to destroy alliances, Sean, and destroy everything that we worked for in a post 9/11 world, right? He was going to start World War III. He was crazy. He couldn't be trusted. And he brought about this. He started to dial down Afghanistan to the point where he had a plan for a retreat, not a retreat, but a withdrawal that would not have been a retreat, excuse me, where we left all these weapons for them to now use against us and our allies. The Abraham Accords, right? Re-engagement with Russia, at least on some level, so we could try maybe to work together to stem the rise of China. Everything that it was like a realist's wish list. And they told us the opposite. And now here we are. What are your thoughts on this? Well, and as somebody who served too, Sean,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you, you see Joe Biden, he's in Israel today, and there's video clips out there of him meeting with Bibi Netanyahu. And, the one that's gone viral thus far is him sort of just talking about some line that a State Department staffer wrote for him. And then he trails off and says, anyway. I mean, and I say this on my show often, but the man Joe Biden can barely string together a coherent sentence. He's basically an animated corpse that they dip into the Lazarus pit every day, yet every single day of his presidency that goes by, the Lazarus pit gets less and less effective. And so it doesn't exactly, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in me that he's going into, in Israel, one of the most complex geopolitical situations for at least the past 100 years. I mean, it's a powder keg over there, and the escalatory possibilities, both between Israel, Gaza, Hezbollah, Iran, and all the nations surrounding Israel, is just scary as hell. But made all the more scarier with Joe Biden at the helm. And there's no question, okay, that our enemies, and just put your military hat on here for a second and put yourself in the shoes of our enemies. You see a bumbling moron like Joe Biden at the helm who can't even walk up a small flight of stairs. And again, Rich, this is not me throwing political jabs at Biden. I mean, all cards on the table. Everybody knows I'm a Trump guy. I'm a staunch conservative and Republican, of course, but I'm not throwing political jabs right now. The man can barely stand up. And of course, you've seen the polling that shows that the Democrats, independents they all believe that Joe Biden's too old for the job. That it concerns the hell out of them too. So isn't it like our enemies see this weakness and they're just taking advantage of it? And in Israel, and what happened with Hamas and Israel, and I think a couple of things here, like to say what Hamas did to Israel is an attack, actually does a disservice to what Hamas actually did. It wasn't an attack. It was a massacre of innocent men, women, children, the elderly, Holocaust survivors. Now, again, to people who are watching this, like, imagine being in your 90s and somehow surviving the Holocaust and then trying to, Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, is about how do you find meaning in life after the Holocaust, when you've literally lost everything of meaning, value, people that you love in your life coming out of it. Imagine being on that journey, on a search for meaning, and then being taunted, captured by Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, in your 90s. They murdered babies, captured children, using these people as human shields. I mean, it was a massacre, and on every single level, Rich, a war crime of the highest order. And so, and this is what I'm building to, a couple different things here. Republicans, because so much of what we see today is a fight in the court of public opinion. Republicans absolutely have to adjust the way they talk about this because for a couple of reasons. But Republicans, as soon as this happened, just churned out the same old talking point. You know what that was? Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right to defend itself. Okay, but take a couple seconds back and think about what that means. Defense, which is a military tactical term, means, okay, so that means you fire a couple of indirect fire attacks, rockets, surgical strikes on Hamas, and then that's it, right? And that's why you see the Democrats preempting this anticipated narrative from Republicans with phrases like proportional response leading to ceasefire, right?
Symmetry, Sean. Symmetry.
It's exactly right. And so what Republicans need to do is change the way they talk about it. Israel has a right to destroy Hamas. And the reason why I believe this, and you know me well, you will never, only in the rarest of circumstances, ever hear me call for U.S. boots on the ground anywhere, military action anywhere. I don't believe U.S. boots on the ground should be in Israel either. And by the way, Bibi Netanyahu and the IDF is not asking for that.
They can handle it.
Yeah, for a couple of actually very important geopolitical reasons. But the IDF, like they've tried two-state solutions. They've tried to offer Hamas and the Palestinian Authority a state twice, extended an olive branch twice, and they've said no, continuing instead to further the cycle of violence and murder innocent people. And this leads me to my final point. Like the whole premise of a two-state solution, right? Why, as a terrorist organization, do you feel entitled to a country? Just because you ask for a country doesn't mean you deserve one. I mean, my God, you like, hey, let's like do a quick job application. Okay, like, hey, like, so you want a country? What's the number one charter of your country? Oh, wait, what? It's to commit genocide against your neighbor and murder all the Jews, which are 10 miles from you. If that's the number one mission of your country, maybe you shouldn't have one in the first place, which is why I support Israel completely wiping out Hamas. It needs to happen. And here's the overall 30,000 foot perspective. Joe Biden, and the reason why he's so dangerous is because he's doing everything that he can to delay the ground invasion into Gaza. He said it on 60 Minutes. He doesn't support it. The more he delays it, the more untenable that mission of the destruction of Hamas becomes. And the cycle of violence just repeats itself over and over.
You put so much in there, and I want to start with Biden. Just the way he looks, like you said. If you don't think this is a sign to our enemies that it's open season, you're crazy. I mean, I'm going to play a video in a second where Sean, literally throughout human history and human civilization, adversaries, enemies always waited for the king to be weak, and to be what's the word? I mean, inept to make their move because that's when the country was in disarray. They were not united. They were not strong. And that's when they would decide that it's time to take, it's their moment, it's time to take their glory, seize their glory. I'm going to play this clip from Biden, but there's so much to unpack in what you said because for me, and again, I tell people this all the time, the older I get, just the less appetite I have for war. But the IDF doesn't need us. The Israelis don't need our boots on the ground. This has just been going on forever. Another clip I'm going to play. I mean, I remember this is like going back to being a teenager. I'm going to play a clip where someone calls for this just to stop the madness. Just stop the madness. And it's pretty sad on the Republican side that they still are saying the same things that you heard them say when that clip was first aired. I mean, when it was first publicly aired. And we're still here. But let me play this from Biden real quick. All right, so here's Joe Biden. I mean, first of all, just look at him. I did not clip this. This is all right. This is him. I'm going to put it up big for everybody to see. 20 seconds, and then we'll play something else, sir.
Years ago, I asked the Secretary of State when he and I were working in the Senate to write something for me, and he said he wrote a line that I think is appropriate. He said, it's not, we lead, not just, I won't go into it. I'll wait later. Taking too much time.
Sean, what is that?
Exactly.
I didn't really understand. I think he was starting to talk about John Kerry, who, by the way, is something else I wanted to get in with you when it comes to this. Democrats have been undermining Israel and they were undermining Donald Trump as a sitting duly elected president. But this is also something, there's like a two-front war here. There really is. There's what's going on abroad, and then there's what's going on at home. And they have this shell of a man. I mean, Sean, there are Democratic lawmakers with ties to the very people who launched this attack on Israel. Or like you said, it's not even an attack. This killing of
course,
innocent people. There are Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, a growing number. All of the pro-Israeli Pelosi lieutenants are gone, defeated by nutcases who ally with them. It's not rising anti-Semitism and pro-Hamas sentiment on college campuses. That was the case 20 years ago when I was on a college campus. Okay. It is prevalent. It is the predominant view on college campuses. So that's the problem. So there's two things going on when I see Joe Biden act that way and be that weak and just be this empty shell, empty void of a man. One is, I really hope Xi Jinping's not watching right now. And number two, which of course he is. And number two is that these people now have an empty shell of a person that they can just steer policy with and agendas with, Sean. And he's just out there. He's not in charge. He's not there anymore. And, the old Joe Biden 20 years ago would, of course, I don't think he would be okay with this. I don't, because he wasn't, I don't know, maybe I don't know his heart. I don't know the man, but I think the story he was trying to convey there was a story about John Kerry. And then he retreated from that because of, stuff that I couldn't believe we were the only ones reporting it back then. John Kerry through a close associate, told Abbas to hold off on having a peace negotiation with Trump over, two-state solution that the Trump administration had put forward. This is going back to 2018, saying that the president will be gone. We're going to remove him from office, meaning President Trump. We are removing him from office. Don't deal with him, because when we remove him, then Palestinians will be able to put their terms on the table. This is what John Kerry told a close associate of Mahmoud Abbas in London. And then Abbas refused to meet with Mike Pence. And when President Trump saw that they would not accept his two-state, not even a proposal, he wouldn't even sit down, that's when he moved to isolate them, even with the Arab world. And we got the Abraham Accords. And that's what happened. This is just so, putting all of that, because you can't really talk about it in a narrow way. You have to think about it all, under the same umbrella. It's terrifying.
It is. And it even goes back even further than Trump. And of course, John Kerry worked in a very steadfast way, almost clandestinely, to undermine Trump as it pertains to U.S. policy towards Iran. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
He was saying once Trump is removed from office, we will re-enter the Iran nuclear deal. Now, just let's unpack that for a second. You have Democrats, first President Obama, and then John Kerry undermining President Trump, and now Joe Biden re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. Iran is a country that funds and exports terrorism, that trains people to be brutal suicide bombers,
which firsthand.
I know. I've been
hit. You have to deal with IEDs made from Iran, or not even made from them, but made by people who are trained by them.
100%. We faced an Iranian in Afghanistan about 6 months into the deployment. We faced a 250 plus, Iranian trained terror cell, and they were just unbelievably brutal. They were smart. They understood tactics. Their loadout was exactly the same. So when I saw what was happening in Israel, I knew immediately that Iran was involved just by looking at the loadout that some of the IDF captured when we're talking about RPGs, the launchers, the specific ICOM walkie-talkie radios, to the plastic Italian TC-6 anti-tank mines. These are all hallmarks of Iranian-funded terror cells. But think back to Obama in his first term when he hired and brought on Robert Malley, right? Rob Malley was a known Hamas sympathizer. Barack Obama, in his first term, because he was running for a second term and didn't want to risk losing, had to fire Rob Malley because of his close associations with Hamas. Rob Malley grew up around Yasser Arafat. Rob Malley refers to Yasser Arafat as his unofficial godfather. Well, so at the moment that Barack Obama won a second term, he brought Rob Malley back on, again, who is a known terrorist sympathizer who works very, very closely with the highest levels of the Iranian government. And who did Joe Biden bring on as a special envoy to Iran as it pertains to U.S. policy? Rob Malley. Rob Malley immediately hired 3 basically Iranian regime sympathizers that were working directly with the foreign ministry there, and then actually penning, ghostwriting op-eds for Iranian officials in the New York Times and CNN and the Wall Street Journal, all for the reason of softening U.S. policy towards Iran, which again, and by the way, Rob Malley recently had a security clearance revoked for mishandling classified information, is now being investigated by the FBI. So who knows where that's going to go, but clearly in the emails that were leaked or granted access to via FOIA requests, you can see how Rob Malley and his team and the Iran Experts Initiative were talking to the Iran foreign minister, calling him, His Majesty and stuff. So it's clearly they weren't taking a hard line with Iran. But I'm saying all this to say that the Iran nuclear deal paves the way for Iran to get a bomb. And if Iran would literally trains terror cells to blow themselves up to kill you, to kill themselves up to kill their enemy, what exactly do you think they're going to do should they get a nuclear bomb? Of course they'd fire a bomb at Israel, wipe Israel off the face of the planet. Who cares if the U.S. responds, wipes out one of our cities? It doesn't really matter to us. So the whole concept of mutual assured destruction goes away when you have an enemy that's willing to blow themselves up for the cause. And so this is what the Democrats are trying to do, Rich. They're trying to pave the way for Iran to get a bomb, and Iran will use a bomb. It's just like how this isn't treason is just beyond me, because it is. It's treason of the highest order. It makes Americans less safe, and ultimately any Democrat that raised their right hand and took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, they're violating that oath by providing sympathy to our enemies.
Well, you just said it's also goes out the window when you have the leadership of the most powerful, still at this point anyway, most powerful country in the world is supposed to be their greatest ally, basically just throwing them to the wind and then working against them. And you use the T word, but General Flynn actually saw the report that we had put up about that back then with John Kerry subverting what President Trump was trying to do. And even back, then it was like, how is this not sedition? And like fast forward for sedition, at least. And then fast forward to January 6th. And you have these people that now they had to charge somebody with sedition so they can have a legal precedent to use against President Trump. But this is, to me, crazy. I'm unaware of anybody who was killed as a result of undermining the U.S. government other than Ashley Babbitt, who was an unarmed protester during January 6th. Here we have all of these people who are dead now, Sean, because of what you just said, all of the actions they took, what you just said, what John Kerry did, stopping that peace process. Not that I thought there would be a two-state solution. It's just that I did think if anybody could do it, it would be Donald Trump. And Ron's role in this is so key, because when you look at how he killed Sam Soleimani is, for people who don't know what he did, that was like his job, to run the unit who trained these people in the art of IEDs and other forms of terrorism. That's what he did. So, just all of this together. And by the way, he was told, don't do it. Right. And you talk about them constantly subverting or going against U.S. interests, and then people ending up dead because of it. They told him not to kill that man. They said if he did it, the Middle East would descend into chaos. If you kill Soleimani, people are going to rise up everywhere. That's funny because, Sean, again, going back to this, everything they say would have happened if, with Donald Trump or said, he was leading us to, has now happened. And we have all of this. I'm going to show this real quick. This is just some clips about Beirut, what's going on in Beirut for people who have not seen. Oops, I don't want to make that. Here we go. This is Benghazi almost all over again. Thank God so far it hasn't gone that far, but this is what's going on around the world right now, folks. And this is again during, I'm not trying to make this Democrat Republican, but it has to be, because there's only one political party who has sympathizers and people who are advancing the agenda of our enemies. Republicans don't have any terrorist friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. Democrats, right? There are no Republican academics at Harvard or Yale who are teaching students, because even when I was getting an international relations degree, I had it was a well-known, people probably even know him and have read his book. It was well-known Jewish international relations scholar. And he had I would say, a sympathy toward the Palestinians, even though he was himself a Jew. So this has been going on like this for years. Again, is he a Republican? Of course not, right? There's only one party who has been voicing this. Let me play this. There's a couple of them. I don't need to play them all. There's a couple little short clips. Let's roll them. Looks like a protest, right, John? I mean, come on. All right, here's this one. We got more. Crazy. And another one. That's not violent yet. No, Palestinian flags. Let's move on to one more. I mean, it's just chaos, Sean. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's chaos. It's dissent. It's the first one was clearly on the verge of getting to be violent. I mean, that was getting in the danger zone. Even large scale protests. It doesn't matter. None of this was going on when Donald Trump was president. None of this was going on in Eastern Europe when Donald Trump was president. Literally everything they said would happen under Donald Trump if we didn't get rid of the monster and elect the decent man to bring back our alliances, to make our alliances strong again with NATO and our allies around the world. It would descend into chaos. World War III would happen. Economies would collapse. Literally everything that they alleged would happen under Donald Trump is happening under Joe Biden. Everything.
I mean, this is what I say in the show all the time, is that anything that this is how you can tell what the Democrat agenda is and what they themselves are doing, because they immediately accuse Republicans. I mean, you can just watch on any narrative. They'll accuse whatever they accuse Republicans of, they themselves are guilty of. So, Trump's going to cause World War III. Actually, no, that's not true. The moment Biden stepped into the White House, the slow march to World War III and escalatory conflict in Ukraine, escalatory conflict in Israel with Gaza, and now you have potential of China invading Taiwan. I mean, it's just all happening under Joe Biden, but it's a prime example of the golden rule of anytime Democrats accuse Republicans of something, they themselves are guilty of it. It happens time and time again. And you're right about President Trump. He was by far the greatest peacetime president of my lifetime. And he was, and all these people saying, like, Iran, first of all, President Trump immediately withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. President Trump killed Qasem Soleimani. No war, by the way, even though people said there would be war. Iran under President Trump was enriching 4% uranium. Yeah.
Wait, we have to stop for a second. Joe Biden said, he tweeted it that this was dangerous and now there would be chaos, and because the president was reckless. He was reckless, and he was a maniac who kills people, and there would be consequences for it. By the way, the one man who told Obama not to kill Osama bin Laden, right? So this is, and it's, I mean, Sean, he was thrown off the H1N1 task force because he couldn't properly handle a pandemic, yet they sold him to us as the only man who could really do a better job than Donald Trump on the pandemic. He's the one guy who told Barack Obama not to kill Osama bin Laden and was wrong about every foreign policy decision over the last 4 decades.
Yeah, according to his own secretary, according to Robert Gates, his own Secretary of Defense. But I mean, it's unbelievable to me how wrong he is about everything. And you remember back also when I said Trump killed Soleimani in Iran, and people said there'd be war, there'd be uprisings everywhere. There wasn't. But despite the media's best efforts, you remember how the media treated Soleimani's death, of like revered him as some great military leader. They covered his. Do you remember how they covered his funeral, Rich?
Yeah.
I mean, they lavished praise on the guy. They covered his funeral, and people crying on television, and how this great leader of Iran was assassinated by evil President Trump, when in fact Soleimani was the one responsible for training the most radical terrorists in the entire world. People who made their business killing American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 damn years. Soleimani trained. Soleimani came up with the technology and trained people to use EFPs, which were devastating to American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it just shows you, and we're seeing this scenario play out again with the hospital strike. Immediately, the media and Democrats in Congress at the exact same time elevated terrorist talking points and said that Israel was responsible for, quote, leveling a hospital and killing 500 plus innocent Palestinian men, women, and children. And they immediately referred to it as a massacre. So think everything that we're talking about in the terms of a proportional response, because that's the media narrative. It's like, well, hey, this is what they're building to, Rich. Well, hey, look, Hamas massacred all these civilians, but now look, Israel massacred a hospital. So we're even. First of all, like, immediately, with no critical thinking whatsoever, they elevated a terrorist group, Islamic Jihad's propaganda about Israel striking a hospital. No proof whatsoever. I mean, every news outlet in the country, along with Democrats in Congress, and then in the next 24 hours, you've got uprising at Israeli and U.S. embassies all across the Middle East. Violent uprisings. I mean, they didn't have, thankfully, thank God.
Are they going to hear the revised story, Sean? And even if they do, are they going to care? I mean, that's
that's the whole point.
Yep.
That's my whole point. And like, so these Democrats in Congress, first of all, they've issued no corrections about this, but Republicans have a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. I mean, once Republicans get their house in order, pun intended, there need to be consequences for people like Rashida Tlaib, AOC, and all these rabid, lying anti-Semites in Congress. Because listen, if the tables were reversed and Republicans were doing this, I mean, look what they did to Marjorie Taylor Greene. They removed her from committees. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason why these people should be in Congress. They should be expelled from Congress from doing this because their lies, in accordance with all these fake news media outlets. They're not just the enemy of the people, by the way, the fake news. They're an enemy to global stability, because in the wake of these lies, they cause uprisings all around the world. And I mean, there has to be some level of accountability for it, because these lies lead to violence, and the violence leads to death. And it just we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere and say enough is enough.
That's why I yesterday I disagreed with BB's the way he handled it at first, because, and this is the kind of direction I want to go in before we get back to that, because I saw your tweet and I think you're 100% right. I mean, Steve Scalise was shot, and I don't want to use the guy's name, but before the FBI made Daytona's Facebook page, when we were still, when I was still the editor of People's Pundit Daily, we had that story. We grabbed all the stuff right off his Facebook page and watched it evaporate before our eyes because the FBI wanted it removed. But that guy was 100% duped by Rachel Maddow and the rest of them. He believed that Donald Trump was a traitor, a Russian agent, and he shot Steve Scalise and shot up the Republican caucus conference trying to practice for a charity baseball game, because he was under the belief that lawmakers in Congress were enabling him, and that we were never going to be able to get to the traitor until we got rid of these Republicans in Congress. I mean, that's a terror attack. That's not a madman with a gun. That's not a mass shooting. Washington Post, which they counted that as a mass shooting on their stupid little tracker. That's not a mass shooting and a reason to get rid of the Second Amendment. That's a terror attack and a reason to punish people who pushed. It was a disinformation. Molly Hemingway's been great about this. It was an intel-fueled, media-supported disinformation campaign. They used the dark arts that they use in other countries to start coups against their own population. It's unforgivable, Sean, unforgivable. And for me, the reason I disagree with BB's reaction is because regardless of whether or not Hamas attacked that hospital or Israel attacked it, and there's another video other than this, and I saw it. So for people out there who are going to say, hey, did you see the other video? I did, but the other video still doesn't seem to understand how a misfire works. All right. I mean, they're like, look, this is a different angle and the missiles are headed this way. And it's like, you don't seem to understand how misfire actually works in the battlefield. But I'm going to play this. And my point is, if I'm the leader of Israel at this point, and then after this clip, I want to play one more and get your reaction before we just put away the clips. But I just don't care about it, because I know what the media is going to do. I know what the left, like you just brought up, is going to do. And my response is not going to be the typical response if I was the leader of Israel or any country that was in this position. My response is, if it did turn out to be my country that did it, there was a good reason, because these people are aligned with terrorists. And if you get in the way, you're in the way. I'm defending my country, and I'm sorry, and that's it. I mean, I think Bibi should take that path moving forward. You're not going to be able to walk this line of not hurting these NGOs and not hurting these so-called, Doctor Without Border kind of, organization. Sean, you know how they operate. If you've been over, you've been abroad, you've been downrange, you know how these people operate. They're full of crap. They're not really civil rights organizations. They're not really public health organizations. They have sympathies with the enemy. They help them. They try to pretend like they're neutral. They're not. And then they sit there and pretend they don't know what's going on in the next room when the weapons cache is building up and the rockets are being stockpiled where there's supposed to be antibiotics. They're full of crap. That's the way this works. Let's play this clip, and I get your take on it, because to me, this does. And at first I'm always skeptical. I don't fall for the fog of war. I don't war propaganda is the worst. So I do always like to take a step back and see, but my personal view is that I wouldn't have cared anyway, because if Israel bombed the hospital, rest assured, it's because they're lobbing rockets from it. I mean, that's the way. So you can't come at it from this politically correct point of view. You have to say, I'm defending my people. This is the way. These are the terrible decisions that I have been forced to make because these people are barbarians. And that's the way you have to move going forward. You can't fight a war. You just can't. But here, let me play it and see what your take is. It's about a minute, but you're going to hear them talking. The left is the launch site, guys, on your screen. The right is where the hospital is. The BBC also had a video. I just wanted to use this one. Let's see. It really shows the same thing.
This is proof of Israel's claims that it was actually missiles from the Gaza Strip shot into the direction of the El Ahly hospital in Gaza City, and not from Israel. This is Channel 12's camera. It is a camera situated in the city of Netivot, and its view is of the Gaza Strip. You see the time stamp on this. It's 6:59, and this is when it happens. We can press play on the tape, and you can see very clearly. Again, this is Channel 12's camera. You can see the rockets. This is the left red stamp fired over the hospital, which is the right, and you can see the blast. So that is proof of the fact that it came from the Gaza Strip. Our cameras, Channel 12's cameras. The president of the United States has already said it appears it was done by the other team, meaning he also realizes that it was shooting from inside Gaza over the hospital.
All right, I don't care what Biden says, Sean, but if you look, the other angle that people are showing, let me just back it up. Do you guys see under the 12? You can see the lights in the sky there, and they do move. They appear to be, that's what people are claiming are airstrikes from Israel. Airstrikes don't move like that. They don't look like that. They don't go up and then come down. So also, I mean, Sean, the explosion happens when those are still in the sky. So that to me is, what's your take? I'll let you, give your opinion first on what you think you see there.
First, let me talk about the Bibi Netanyahu response. I
mean,
that's great. I agree with what you're saying. I mean, the reality is that Hamas commits war crimes. They've already committed war crimes.
Yeah.
And they use people as human shields. They routinely store munitions, men, weapons, equipment, command posts in schools and in hospitals. So, and they've been known to do this for years. So you're exactly, I mean, I think I agree with you. If Israel really did shoot the hospital, best just to be honest about it. And I think Israel would. I do. And I think the reason for that is that the stakes for them are much higher.
This is different. Yeah.
And I think for Bibi Netanyahu, like, if you didn't, then you want the world to know as fast as humanly possible, just to show how fake these media types are who immediately jumped into a terrorist organization's camp, and also how fake some of these US politicians are. So there's that. As far as the rockets go, I mean, I've seen the evidence, watched the videos. I've been hit with every type of enemy rocket that you could possibly imagine. I know what they look like. I know what they sound like. I can tell whether it's a 107 or 122 just by the way it flies through the air, by the way that it impacts on the ground, by the explosive. I've seen it 100 times. I can hear the way it fires and tell you exactly what it is. Like, that is absolutely 100% a rocket failure from, well, initially they said it was Hamas, but then it became pretty clear that it was Islamic Jihad. And here's the reason. When you talk about like AOC and all these idiots whose stupidity is actually dangerous, talking about collective punishment and how they don't have water and how it's horrible that Israel cut off water. It's like, take 5 seconds and realize that Hamas dug up the water pipes in Gaza to use makeshift to make them into makeshift rocket launchers. So the reason why you don't have water is because of Hamas. They're a terrorist organization. So the moral responsibility for that lies with them. Okay. But if you're using a makeshift launcher, which I've seen these guys do this time and again, because we faced it in Afghanistan. My base in Afghanistan took over 4,500 some rockets in 485 days. I'm a subject matter expert on this stuff. But when you use a makeshift rocket launcher, you can expect 30 to 40% of the launched rockets to fall short of the objective. And so if you're and oftentimes, I mean, you're not firing these rockets just right close to the border with Israel. I mean, some of these rockets have a max effective range of 50 kilometers. So you're trying to, you're firing these rockets probably 50 kilometers away from where you're hoping that they impact. And 30 or 40% of them are falling short. Guess what? If you're firing over your own city, those short rounds are going to land in your population centers. It's just as simple as that. As far as airstrikes are concerned, airstrikes, especially with some of the laser guided joint direct attack munitions that the Israelis use, you'd never see them. You'd never see them on FLIR, what they call forward-looking infrared. These surgical sites, they penetrate radar fences very, very low, and by the time you get a ping, which is radar ping, they're already on target. So you wouldn't be able to see through a sort of camera forward-looking infrared, in many cases these airstrikes because they happen so fast, and so it just. And now we come to find out, again, think back to the propaganda, right? And we talked about Bibi Netanyahu's response, but they said that hospital was leveled. Okay. Look at some of the video that's out there today. It hit the parking lot. The hospital's still standing. So somebody is lying about something. And chances are it's the terrorist organization who is willing, like as Bibi Netanyahu said, if they're willing to kill our kids, they're willing to kill theirs as well. And I think he's right.
Al Jazeera, Sean, Al Jazeera. I'm like, when I'm going through, researching for the show, prepping for the show, trying to figure out the best clip for us to go over.
They came out again. They came out. Yeah, I agree.
They've been doing this for years,
100%.
and it became really dangerous when our media began to parrot stuff that Al Jazeera said without even confirming or doing their own legwork, and that happened years ago. That was a real shift in the propaganda in the Middle East. Once upon a time, we did not believe local or regional sources, and now we just do. And some of the stuff that they had said yesterday, or really within the last 24 hours, was just totally incorrect. But they buy immediately. The hospital's leveled, it's gone. And then you brought up the pipes with the water. This is another thing that's been going on forever. I mean, Laura, she's in the other room because this issue just drives her nuts, and I can hear her making comments. I remember when they was following up on the story. What happened to the concrete? They didn't build this hospital. It was a clinic. The clinics didn't go up because something happened to the concrete. I guess the Israelis must have stolen the concrete. And as it turns out, that NGO directed the concrete to Hamas, who used it to build tunnels.
Right.
Terror tunnels. And it's just amazing. But the West, the media bought it and ran with that story as well. This is an oldie, but a goodie. And this was really, I'm only playing it because it's like, this is how long we've been at this madness, Sean. Oh God, my family loved this woman. My father loved her, and there will never be another one like Joan Rivers. And I just want to play
she's
this
the best.
she's the best. This is when she first realizes what is wrong with the entertainment industry and the media and entertainment industry, that all of a sudden they believe everything the propagandists, the Palestinians, and and Hamas sympathizers have to say. What is wrong with everybody? And I'm just going to play it because, folks, this is a while ago. We've been at this forever. I remember before there was an Iron Dome. And I remember almost daily, if not, there were periods of time when fighting would break out, Sean, and every night on the news, it was, a rocket A rocket hit a cafe. A rocket hit a bus. So an IED exploded. And this is why I wanted to have you on so bad. Earlier in the week, we were talking about another thing that the AOC crowd was pushing, that this was an airstrike. In another video you and I were talking about and discussing, is it an IED? Is it an airstrike? It's very clearly 100% an IED. And ignorance like that is dangerous, because here she is pushing the idea that it's an airstrike. It was not an airstrike. That was very clearly an IED. But here, I want to play the late, great Joan Rivers.
I'm trying to get celebrity reactions to what's going on with the Palestinians and Israelis right now.
Let me just tell you, if New Jersey were firing rockets into New York, we would wipe them out. I am so bored. We heard they were digging tunnels from New Jersey to New York. We would get rid of Jersey. So I don't want to hear anymore. Oh, we'll do a partial truce. The Palestinians, you cannot throw rockets and expect people not to defend themselves.
What about the civilian casualty rate?
Then don't put your goddamn things in private homes. I'm sorry. Don't you dare put weapon stashes in private homes, and then we say get out. Of course, we're going to do it.
The response normally is where are the civilians supposed to go?
I don't care. They started it. It is. You're all insane. For months this has been going on. And I wish the world would know. And BBC should be ashamed of themselves. And CNN should be ashamed of themselves. And everybody stop it.
I mean, Sean, the BBC caught it live. They caught it live, Sean. The BBC. I'm sorry, there's another Palestinian protest tape running. They caught it live, the BBC.
I know.
It was live.
I mean, look, Joan Rivers is 100% correct. And let me tell you something else that really makes me mad. This idea that the Palestinians are not Hamas, right? I want your people to look at that. Can you see that? Probably not. You see it right there? I don't know. Hamas wins in landslide victory. Hamas wins landslide victory with 76 seats in the Palestinian parliament.
Put that up again. I'll make it bigger. Put that up again. I want you people to see that. Let's see.
Yeah,
look at it. Yeah, they can see it now. Yup.
Let me see if I can get it away from that.
It glares in and out, but they can see it. Hamas wins
frustrating.
Landslide.
Sorry, I need a better camera, but Hamas, like the Palestinians support Hamas. The Palestinian Authority supports Hamas. Anytime, I mean, just my God, think back to 9/11. Like when 9/11 happened, you had Palestinians cheering in the streets. Every school in Gaza teaches their children that the United States of America is the great Satan, and that Israel is their lackey, and that it's okay to kill Americans and Israelis. So, I mean, like, this is the danger with this political political correctness. And this is what this is again, it all goes back to Republicans and how we deal with this stuff. But if you're a Republican running for office, your job is, and too many Republicans fall into this trap. And I by the way, I watched what's his name?
That's what I want to get into next.
Ken Buck on CNN talking about how he voted for Tom Emmer because he hates Tom Emmer and he wants Tom Emmer to be speaker. I'm like, he's like laughing and joking around with these anchors.
It's a clown.
But I'm telling you, like that is a microcosm of the problem with the Republican Party. Your job is not to ingratiate yourself with the media. You have to go into running for office knowing that these idiots are going to hate you. If they hate you, you're doing a good job. You're doing the right thing. And it's not about being popular. It's not about using your political status to springboard into being a celebrity. It's not about being a news anchor. It's about representing the people in the United States of America, period, full stop. And I'm tired of the Republican. Every Republican in Congress should be reacting like Joan Rivers. Because if we all did that, the narrative might shift a little bit, but our party is so fractured and is chaos and disarray all the time. And the Democrats, you know, they talk about fundamentally transforming this country all the time. What I say on the show all the time, to fundamentally transform something means to tear it down brick by brick. So while there's all this chaos on our side and our team is in complete disarray, we're essentially tearing down the system for our enemies, they're waiting unified to pick those blocks back up and build it in their image. And so it's just so unbelievably frustrating. And that just speaks to the larger point back to Israel, Gaza, the ability to speak with moral clarity. I've said for a very long time, I studied this, I have a master's degree studying this stuff, but the Holocaust, I've often wondered how it could possibly happen. Now I see every day how it did. And I mean, it's obviously a different situation today than it was back then. But back then, there's a book by a great Andy Andrews of how do you kill 11 million people? Well, you lie. And then even the Jews themselves at the height of the Holocaust, as the Nazis made their march to Britain, didn't believe that the Nazis were rounding up Jews and putting them in the ghetto and putting them in concentration camps. But as they arrived, the Jews didn't evacuate. They stayed and they were shipped away to the camps. But you look like it was almost under the radar back then, Rich. It's not under the radar anymore. It's like, so you wonder how it could happen. It's worse today. I mean, obviously we haven't had a horrific situation like the Holocaust happen today, but like people's sentiment towards Jews and Israelis, it's like seeing the stuff that's happening on campuses and protests in Scotland and in London, waving the Palestinian flag and celebrating these terrorist attacks. I don't wonder how the Holocaust could happen anymore, Rich. I see it every day on the news.
But I'll tell you, I mean, tone from the top, Sean, in 2018, when Donald Trump was we were going back to that story. I mean, it really is a story of sedition with John Kerry. Linda Syed from Gallup wrote an article in 2018, as the Trump administration pushes their peace deal in the Middle East with the boss, Americans remain staunchly in favor of Israel. And you can see it in the graph right here. 82% of Republicans, 38% of independents, still about 1 in 5 Democrats. Net sympathy for Israel is a percentage more sympathetic toward Israel minus the percentage more sympathetic toward Palestinians. So that's what that is there, really a net, folks, right? It's a, kind of how we do the economic confidence index. All right. So here though, Sean, I mean, now fast forward a couple of years, just a few years, and you can very clearly see there was something going on with Democrats for a while. Right.
Wow. Absolutely. Wow.
And now look at it. -11, meaning they're more sympathetic to the Palestinians, not realizing what you just said. And yesterday, last week, when I was covering or reminding people of that story with Secretary Kerry, there was the anti-Semitism resolution really censuring or, it was like a censure of Ilhan Omar after just months of being in Congress, right? Her and Rashida Tlaib being the two first Muslim women to be elected to Congress. And there was an article I was reminding people of that Rashida Tlaib was hosting people who had ties not to the Palestinian Authority, to Hamas in the halls of Congress. And this is, not something we can, you're right. The Republican Party is so divided. We're not able to confront these realities. And I was trying to make a very clear point that we really cannot continue to go on without acknowledging that one of the major political parties in this country, at least, if isn't involved with, in bed with, and I use the words in bed with because they are. I mean, when they're roaming the halls of Congress, Sean, in your office, lobbying Nancy Pelosi, lobbying Engel. And by the way, where's Engel now? Defeated, and replaced by a nutcase who agrees with AOC on this issue. So don't tell me that they're not in bed with them. They are, and here even their voters now are aligned with them. And this is like, again, tone from the top matters, because just fast forward 5 years ago when Donald Trump was president and speaking with a clear voice, a morally like a moral compass, that there was, and really morality doesn't even have anything, it doesn't have to have anything to do with it. You can be a stone cold realist, which I consider myself to be, Sean, and realize one is a threat, the other one is not. And that's why I've always been, again, like I say, I don't even like to think. I like to think I'm honest with people. And the bottom line is I'm pretty much anti-conflict at this point. But that doesn't mean when somebody is trying to get into your home and slit the throats of you and your family, you don't defend yourself and fight back. And if that means going on the offense to get rid of them before they launch those attacks, then that's what you got to do. And that's where the position is really in.
Absolutely. And let me, somebody's saying in the live chat, because I watch what people say in the live chat, and they said, why didn't Israel, how did this happen in the first place? Why didn't Israel stop? I mean, look, it is. And the reality is, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but I will tell you this, sometimes in combat stuff doesn't go your way. And I mean that. I mean, there's a phrase that the enemy has a say, the enemy has a vote. Now, Israel is one of the most technologically advanced surveillance states in the world. Okay. I don't know how Hamas conducts a coordinated terror strike the way that they did on Israel without Israeli intelligence, or especially U.S. intelligence. Although I will say I do have theories about why our intelligence didn't know. But by the way, maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the collective eyes of our intelligence agencies are focused on quote unquote domestic extremists. And if you saw the Newsweek article a couple of weeks ago, that means Trump supporters in the lead up to the 2024 election. And I don't give a damn what anyone says. If the collective eyes of your intelligence agencies are focused on half of your own people, they are going to miss things abroad, And so I don't have an answer how Israel didn't know. And I will tell you, I've heard from my sources on the ground. I got buddies that are still in the IDF and in the Israeli special forces. They say that Hamas had prepared this for 2 years, that Iran was intimately involved in the planning, and they were communicating via a courier service with jump sticks, which is exactly the same way that Osama bin Laden was communicating as well, meaning it's a lot of tactical acumen that's required to do that, a lot of radio silence and radio discipline that's required to do that, communicating with jump sticks. Basically, plug it into your computer, here's the message, send one back, runner runs it to the next person. I mean, that 2 years of that. And so it's hard to stop something like that unless you're prepared to react at the moment of the attack, which I think is a fair question, because if you're in Tel Aviv, it's a 45-minute ride to Gaza in a helicopter. So why did it take the IDF 6 hours to respond? I mean, maybe it was because it was on one of their holiest days a year. I mean, there's a lot of, the fog of war is a real thing. What happens in combat? Like, bad things happen, the enemy gets a vote. But I wanted to address that because it is a fair question. It's a fair question, and I just don't have the answer to it right now.
Yeah, I think BB is going to pay a political price for this. For me, this is something else I wanted to get into, because I think if Trump was still president, first of all, this wouldn't happen because he would have further isolated them. And at some point, I think Trump would have killed the leaders of Hamas. I do. I think that for those who don't know, we know exactly where they are. We know where they're sitting. The country doesn't want to give them up. They never want to give them up. So eventually you got to do what you have to do. You further isolate them. You make them irrelevant. You take their leaders out. Over time, you do what you think you have to do.
Well, why hasn't the Biden administration demanded that the Hamas leadership who's staying in Qatar be extradited to the? I mean, why? They're staying in 5-star hotels. Why haven't we demanded that they be extradited? First question. Second question. Why haven't we frozen to $6 billion in assets, sanction-free assets that we've given to Iran? I mean, like, these are basic questions. And another question is, somebody, especially in the wake of Benghazi, you referenced Benghazi earlier, somebody had to know that when there's a conflict in the Middle East, that U.S. embassies should probably be hardened or even evacuated. Why hasn't that happened? What the hell's going on right now? You see what I'm saying? These are like, what? Biden's not doing anything.
Well, this is why, and I want to, take this moment to shift into the speaker stuff and the business of the house, because, one of the things that we failed on, and it is we, the voter as well, because we're not electing the right people. We're not demanding people act a certain way. Somewhere along the line, the House specifically, but because I never trust the Senate. You never trust an upper chamber of lords, folks, and, that's just, I'm sorry, unless there's like 55 JD Vances, I wouldn't trust it, but the House is the people's house, and their job is to conduct oversight over the intelligence community. Maybe they did know, Sean, but maybe they failed. Maybe they're too busy climbing up telephone poles outside of Trump Tower in Mar-a-Lago, and instead of doing their actual damn job, right?
Exactly.
I mean, they have failed time and time again. Putin played him with Prigozhin. This is like one failure after the other. These people are only good, apparently, at duping a certain sector of the American electorate. That's all they're good at anymore.
I agree.
But the House is, I don't care about government not functioning and doing things on a daily basis, but there are basic things, including oversight, that they have to be doing. And I got to bring up this vote because you brought up Ken Buck. I've heard now from numerous people that Ken Buck has a serious primary challenger thinking about running against him. He knows it. And he literally is auditioning for a job on CNN. I kid you not. I've heard this from numerous people now. So that's what Ken Buck is doing. He's just not a serious person. You have, what's his name? Dan over in Nebraska, right? Nebraska too. I was a commander and, I'm going to hold the line. All right. Is this your handiwork, buddy? I mean, this is like, I'm sorry. You served, I get it. And I've talked to you about this before, I'm not at all trying to dismiss any of our sacrifices after 9/11, but I am saying we didn't we didn't do the job. We just didn't do it. So if your work in Iraq, him, meaning him, is any indication, this is just not serious. It's not serious. That Republicans need a speaker. It's Wednesday. Politico was telling the truth, and I know because of my own congressman, Politico was telling the truth that there was a group of Republicans behind closed doors trying to cut deals with Democrats. And here we are today. So Jim Jordan was trying to force that vote on the floor in order to get a speaker so we could move on. And there was way more than 8. I mean, he lost 20 votes the first round. Everyone wants to try to squeeze him for more. This is the problem I had. And I defend the voters every chance I get. And I understand the Republican conference is not representative of the voter. I went on and on about this. Kevin McCarthy, he lost trust of people like Nancy Mace, who aren't bomb throwers. So you have to take a minute and pause there and say, what happened? Why would somebody like Nancy Mace and others who are not?
Man, Rich, she's a total fraud. Nancy Mace is a total fraud. But she voted to impeach Trump. You're done. I mean, if that's a vote that you took, like she needs to be primaried. I'm sorry. And for her to walk onto the House floor with a scarlet letter when Israel and Gaza, I mean, that was the dumbest thing. I mean, these people are so self-centered. I mean,
the scarlet letter thing was too much for me. I get you. I get you.
Come on. God, these people are so unserious.
But she's not a bomb thrower. So, I get that, some promises must have been broken to her somewhere along the way. But we're beyond that now. So whether you agree with what Gates did or not, which, again, if you don't have a plan, you probably should not. And this is the military in me talking, Sean.
Of course, I agree with it. Yeah.
An action plan, you don't pull the ripcord, buddy. You don't jump out.
I mean, and I'll tell you,
forget about the cord.
I think that, look,
but here we are.
I don't know if you, I don't look, I give you a couple thoughts on this. I am not a McCarthy defender. For those of you who are watching, I explain this on my show all the time. Yeah. But look, I was in a contentious swing district in 2020 in Pennsylvania, a highly contentious swing district, raised the money that I needed, record-breaking sums of money that I needed to win that race. I raised all the money myself. McCarthy pulled $1.6 million of funding from my race because he got bad polling from the NRCC that incumbents were going to get hurt. They went into incumbent protection mode, and that means candidates like myself suffered. I don't really care about that. I raised the money to run my race anyway, and their ads would have probably sucked. But my point is, I don't defend Kevin McCarthy. I don't defend politicians because, generally speaking, I don't like them. I think they're about themselves and not you. And by the way, I like Matt Gaetz. I'm friends with Matt Gaetz. I ate dinner with the guy at CPAC. So I like him. I agreed with what he did on the first round of speaker votes when Kevin McCarthy was elected speaker in the first place. I thought that by and large, the concessions that he got on during that process was good for the Republican Party in general. I think it made it a more effective legislative body. But I know that the live chat is gonna light up when I say this, but I don't agree with what Matt Gaetz did. I just don't. I don't. And here's something. I talk to the grassroots. I love the grassroots. I'm part of the grassroots, but I just like to give people the facts. People said the grassroots will largely tell you, and people say, well, McCarthy's a rhino and works with Democrats behind closed doors as Speaker of their House. He's a bad guy, yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. We are where we are. Now we've got, and if I'm sitting in the U.S. House of Representatives, just so we're clear, 100% voting for Jim Jordan, 100% trying to whip my colleagues to vote for Jim Jordan. So that's where I am. Okay. I'm just trying to give you all the background here. McCarthy, love him or hate him, people are calling him a rhino and saying that he works behind closed doors with Democrats. But my question back at that would be, if McCarthy was a rhino, and he's certainly too moderate for me, okay? I'm very conservative. But if he really was a rhino, then why did the Democrats 100% vote to get rid of him? If he was working with them, then why would they kick him to the curb?
Yeah,
so I'm just saying,
it's a good point.
McCarthy has a lot of flaws, but you see how the Republican Party is just not united. It's like herding cats over there. And it's like you got at least McCarthy was able to get 217 votes. Yes, it took 100 freaking votes to get there. But now what? Now, like you said yourself, Jim Jordan's he didn't just lose 8. He lost 20.
We're back where we were with McCarthy. That's when McCarthy lost the first time. I mean, that's where we're at.
That's exactly where we're at, and I hope that the vote goes a little bit better today. But people are saying that Jim Jordan will likely lose support moving forward. I don't know if that's true.
I don't
And
know if
I've
that's
also
true.
heard
People
from
want
my
consistency.
sources that Jim Jordan wanted to get people on the record, so we know what votes that he had to whip. I think there's
That's
wisdom and
right.
value in both of those things. But the issue here for me is like, this is the one legislative body that we control. My mission, I believe that the Democrat Party is an existential threat to this country. And my singular mission is to dismantle the Democrat Party. And any distraction from that mission, okay, any distraction whatsoever, I think is a mistake. And so, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, as Speaker of the House and as a grassroots guy and as someone who's ran for Congress and the Senate, like, this is just something, you don't have to agree with me, folks, but I'm just putting this out there just as something to think about. You want the biggest swamp creature killer as Speaker of the House. It's the most thankless job in the world. No Republican wants it. Republicans absolutely hate that job. Democrats love it because all they do is want to seize power and they're always united. But if you're a Republican Speaker of the House, you're 100%. I want a swamp creature. I want somebody with the mission of dismantling the
I
Democrat
do see
Party.
what you're saying.
I want somebody who knows where all the bodies are buried, and I want someone to take the fight to the Democrats. Our job is to find the most electable person to do that, most conservative speaker possible. But if you love your member of Congress, if you think they're great patriots, and you want them in your district, then you don't want that person as Speaker of the House, because they're going to spend all their time on Capitol Hill and then all their time traveling to other districts to raise money for both candidates and incumbents. It's a horrible job. So give it to some swamp. Our job, let's find the most conservative person available. But as I outlined on my show, 3 courses of action. We have a real opportunity now that McCarthy's gone to elect somebody conservative. It's Jim Jordan. Awesome. I support him all day. But the problem is, and you and I talked about this on the phone yesterday.
He doesn't have the conference yet.
He doesn't. And you've got at least 5 Republicans in swing districts right now. And you've also got 5 additional Republicans that are in Biden plus districts. Democrat majority districts have somehow managed to win. Eventually, those people are going to say, what the hell is going on what the hell's going on? My constituents demand that we do something. And you're going to hear time and time again, and you're already hearing it from Akeem Jeffries, he's a bipartisan consensus candidate. And it's only going to take a couple people to do that. We could end up with a rhino squish as speaker. And that would make me so furious. And who does the blame? It's not that blame's going to fall at the 8th that sided with Democrats. Just the point. They're the reason why we're in the situation that we're in right now.
Like Austin, by the way. That's somebody that seriously could end up with, this is the, you bring something up, which is a concern I have. Jordan doesn't have the conference right now. First of all, let me just preface what I'm about to say with this. Republicans have to become more representative. This is a very serious problem, and they could crack apart as a party. I mean, at some point, a party has got to represent their voters. Otherwise, they just cease to exist. That's how these things work. Somebody will replace them. They'll go the way of the Whigs, or there'll be a third party that comes and cracks off a share of them or something. But right now, Jim Jordan if he becomes speaker, he's at risk of being taken off the board. I mean, I don't know how to put this. He's not going to please everybody, Sean.
In 6 months, people in our party will be calling him a rhino. That's what you're trying to say, and that's exactly what will happen. That's exactly what will happen.
Yeah. And
that's why no Republican wants the job, Rich. That's why no one wants it.
And right now, we just don't see the conference that the Republicans need. The silver lining out of all of this, that what Gates did, is that we now have a list. I don't know about you, but I've been making a list. All right. So you have him, the Joker out in Nebraska too. Here's the real truth about them guys. He's not worth tagging on Twitter, guys. He's not. He's in a Biden plus district that's been trending Democrat for decades, yet they blame Donald Trump for losing it. It's incredible. Donald Trump shockingly held on to it in 2016, and according to the Emerson poll, he shockingly might take it back in 2024. But overall, it's trending to Democrats because it's getting more professional class. Go to your mailbox, get your envelope, go look at a bank statement or a credit card statement, or if you have like a Charles Schwab account or some crap like that. I just brought up Gallup, in fact. They're there as well. Go look at the return address on it, and you will see it came from Nebraska. All right. That's a financial district over there. Those are who funds him. It's a K Street district now. And so he's never going to change his mind. I would be stunned, Sean, stunned if he changed his mind. But there are others out there that can be, pushed. I really think we're at a point here, though, where we're at basically the last day, because you're right. There's going to be either another like Paul Ryan clone that they move out of the closet. That's going to be the consensus candidate. Or you're going to get Hakeem Jeffries.
I'm telling you, and there's people in the chat. I knew that it would make people, I knew it would upset people, but like, listen, it's the truth. Like, it's not a narrative. It's not a narrative to say that the 8 sided with Democrats to depose Kevin McCarthy. That's the facts. That's exactly what happened. 100% of Democrats voted with 8 Republicans to get rid of McCarthy. I don't like McCarthy, but here we are. We have an opportunity, as you just outlined, there are 3 courses of actions. We have an opportunity to elect a conservative speaker. Right now, Jim Jordan's 20 votes short. The majority in the U.S. House of Representatives is razor thin. Right now, Jim Jordan doesn't have the votes. What's he going to do? I mean, right now I'm seeing at least 8 hard no's that are saying unequivocally they're not going to change their vote.
The 12 are like they want something, Sean.
Yeah, they want something in return. Exactly. But even still,
pieces of trash. I'm sorry, Sean. I gotta be
honest. So frustrating.
They're garbage. They're human.
It's so frustrating. But trust me, there are 212 Democrats that are voting. Right. All it's going to take is for one of these moderate squishes to work with Hakeem Jeffries, and that moderate squish says, you know what, we're going to give you all the concessions that Democrats want. We're going to give you Ukraine funding in perpetuity. We're going to stick with the same spending levels.
Jordan gave that up already. Jordan gave that up. Yeah.
Right. But right. That's another great point. But my point is, like, it could switch today. It could flip like that, and you could have a Rhino Squish as your speaker. And I'm telling you, the blame for that falls on those 8 Republicans as far as I'm concerned, because, and I hope it's not the case. Matt Gaetz is a friend of mine, but they're the ones that caused this without a plan. And I think Matt Gaetz' fatal flaw, I'm telling you, I think he read the cards wrong on this. I think he thought McCarthy was going to run again, and I think he thought he was going to be able to get more concessions from McCarthy. I didn't think I almost 100% guarantee he did not expect Kevin McCarthy to step back and say, all right, you all handle it. But now here we are. What do we do?
That is why I do put a lot of the blame on Kevin McCarthy. Some things he didn't have to keep all his promises, Sean, but there are a few things that did really piss people off and then put pressure on people within the 8 to do something. So Nancy Mace got an earful about the January 6 tapes. All right, so I know that. All he had to do
that's a totally fair criticism. I mean, McCarthy made a promise to release those tapes. Why haven't you released the tapes? I agree.
Just keep your damn promise, Kevin. If you would have kept your damn promise, we wouldn't be in this mess, honestly.
Again, like I'm not defending Kevin McCarthy. I don't care. I'd love Jim Jordan as a Speaker of the House, but again, you make him Speaker of the House. He's not the chairman of the judiciary anymore, and he was unbelievably effective taking the fight to Democrats in that role for 10 years.
Yeah. Oh, here's again potential silver lining. Let's pull up this one first. All right, so I just went to the map from 2022. Carlos Gimenez, who is one of the 20, and in fact, he was one of the 8 who caused a problem. And, if people know Jordan's not going to pass, there's going to be a bunch who, for whatever reason, whether it's political, they're trying to cover their hides, or they want concessions. Another 12 ended up, for whatever reason, voting against Jordan, even though they will come around, or would come around if he got the votes and it looked like there was a path. But right now they're trying to squeeze. Carlos Gimenez is in a 63. He won 63.7% of the vote in 2022. He's in District 28 in Florida. I went back and looked, Sean. Do you know how badly Donald Trump is beating Ron DeSantis in Gimenez's district? Same thing with Mario Diaz-Balart, by the way. He's at 70% in this area. He's at 70%. Here's Mario Diaz-Balart. He won with 71% of the vote. Donald Trump is at 70% in this area. In the Gold Coast, all through the Gold Coast, Southwest even, in the Southwest Gulf, and then the Miami Gold Coast regions, Trump is just killing it. And I don't think these people fully appreciate the political danger that they could be in. That's totally different, than, say, Dan. I mean, it's just because Dan's not in a district like that. So there's a silver lining here where if Republicans want to prevent this kind of stuff from happening again, they have got to put, like, Republicans have to stop being the fake party. I mean, how am I putting? They're the poser party.
I mean, you're 100%
They're the
right that
poser
they
party.
don't, that our party doesn't represent constituents well, but Republicans also, you know, I'm seeing people in the comments saying that the 8 represented the people and what their constituents wanted. And if I admitted that, it would demolish my argument. But here's my point. Okay. 96% of the caucus, 96% of Republican representatives of their constituents voted for Kevin McCarthy. Again, I don't care about Kevin McCarthy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I would rather have Jim Jordan. But you're looking at 4% of the constituents nationwide voted to, like, if you go by the math and the facts, only 4% of the Republican constituents nationwide voted to get rid of Kevin McCarthy, and they sided with these representatives sided with the Democrats. So my point is that if you're a Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is by and large a very contentious body, your job is to advance the most conservative policy that you can tolerate across the legislative districts that you have. And if 96% are happy, that's pretty darn good. Like, you talk about representing the people. They represent 96% of Republicans. That math cannot be disputed. So you might think that the 8 that voted with Democrats to depose McCarthy, you might think that they represented the majority of the grassroots. And like I said, I'm 100% voting for Jordan. And it's not about fixing a broken party or putting a Band-Aid on a system that's broken. I see it as a distraction. And look, this distraction has unfolded for 3 weeks. And the Democrats are marching the ball down the field. And if we end up with a squish, whose fault is that? Who started it?
I actually I think we end at the same place, although I do think that the 8, Kevin McCarthy, I don't know where some of these pollsters got their numbers from. Republicans started to warm on him a little bit, because in the beginning I was saying, look, you got to give credit where credit is due, because he was not a Paul Ryan, guys. He's not Paul Ryan. He's not John Boehner. It wasn't like that.
Right.
But at the same time, I do think that the 8 are more representative of the others when it comes to the actual base. But for me,
but Nancy Mace is one of them, Rich. She voted to impeach Trump.
But for me, it's like this is why I'm riding President Trump a little bit. You cannot just do what you did in 15 and 16 again, because you're not going to be able to affect the change with this conference that you think you want, or you're promising to deliver to voters. A lot of these people got to go. They got to go.
I agree. I mean, and look, you and I are on the same page here.
I think I said Dan Bishop. I'm sorry. It was Don Bacon. That's Nebraska too. I think they all look alike after a while, Sean. They all look.
I mean, man, look, you're 100% right. Like, if you're Don Bacon, right? And you're saying, I'm voting for, who did he vote for? First of all, McCarthy said he's for Jim Jordan.
I got it.
Scalise, right?
For Scalise. Yeah.
Yeah. But McCarthy is saying, I'm with Jim Jordan. So if you're voting for Scalise or you're voting for McCarthy, right? Or like, why? McCarthy's saying to vote for Jim Jordan, vote for Jim Jordan. But see, like, this chaos just upsets me, because, I mean, how much have you heard about the Biden impeachment inquiry since all this happened?
Right. I mean, well, I do have to point out, though, some, like, for instance, and here's Kevin McCarthy's district, David Valadao. All right. You can see David Valadao right here, 51.5 to 48.5. That's how much he won. This prick voted against Donald Trump as well, because some 20-year-old advisor. So I'm not kidding you not. Even though, and I don't know if I'm just to say this, but even though people like he was serving with Devin Nunes, I'm like, are you out of your mind? But some 20-year-old little prick who probably went to Yale along with him, told him that he had to vote against Donald Trump. Now look at where he is. He barely won anyway, and he's probably going to lose this time. Why? Give me a minute. John Duarte, 50.2 to 49.8. I know for a fact there have been multiple what has been relayed to me as, are you ready, Sean? Interventions from people who like John's father, because John's dad was a stalwart Republican donor, even when a lot of the other ag people in the Central Valley would work with Democrats, right? They were squish people like, I think the Democrats going to win anyway, so I'm going to hedge my bets and donate to both. Not John's dad. John was like, I'm a Republican. He was like, he would have been, he's MAGA through and through kind of guy. So that is trickling down to John, who everyone was promised is conservative, and he is not. He voted. He was one of these people who tried to be part of the effort to reinstall Kevin McCarthy. It's been totally unproductive. He voted against Jordan yesterday again. I mean, so this is not principle. This is because they need Kevin McCarthy's money. They're disgusting.
Especially those Republicans in California. You're exactly right. In the 2020 and the 2022 cycle, Kevin McCarthy was heavily involved in getting those Republicans elected because he's a congressman from California as well. That's 100% accurate.
And they're putting themselves and their careers, their campaign careers, and above the party, the country. By the way, Israel, whatever. You can
100% agree.
They're disgusting people, and I don't think they should deserve to be reelected. I'm so tired of, like, honestly, when it comes to the House, Sean, I've never been one who always said, let's vote for somebody who has an R after their name or whatever. I don't think partisans should do that. The left doesn't do that. And look, they affect change more effectively than we do because they will go after those people and get rid of them. Like, Bush will replace a moderate in Missouri, they'll get them out, and Republicans don't do that enough. They just don't. So
you're 100% right. And look, there are people in the comments like chaos. Oh no, who can? I mean, I get it. I completely agree. If I were sitting in the U.S. House of Representatives, I would be on the Freedom Caucus. I would be 100% a Freedom Caucus guy. I get it. But what I'm afraid of is that the Democrats truly are an existential threat. And we talk about Trump. I think Trump is the only pathway to victory in 2024. I mean, but
he's got to run with his own slate, though, Sean.
Exactly.
Slate.
I completely agree, and it's clear from the polling that he's overperforming all of these members of Congress, and he's done it in multiple election cycles as well. Yeah. But like, if we lose in 2024 and there's chaos in the only legislative body that we have, where we can enforce our will, I'm telling you that does not help Trump win in 2024. I mean, look, if we end up, we'll see how the cards fall today, right? But if we end up with Jim Jordan as speaker, Matt Gaetz will be proved to me and those 8 Republicans political geniuses, and they should be celebrated as such.
Yeah.
But if not, then what?
Yeah, that's the bitterness that they're holding on to. Even if, and you and I talk on air, off air about this. I don't like action without plan. I don't like it. And I wasn't happy when he pulled this. I understood the sympathy of the voter, but I was not happy when he pulled this. And I saw like on other shows just kind of celebrating it, like, yeah, we did this. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, but what's your end game? Where are we going here? Right. Again, if for me though, and I know it's risky, and not maybe it is, but for me, if all Republican voters get out of this, is identifying the traitors. Again, here's Kay Granger.
Completely agree with that.
This piece of garbage, Sean, tells Donald Trump. All right, first of all, she's no better than Biden. Take the picture off your campaign page from 20 years ago. Everybody knows the other night you had to be picked up by both armpits and you couldn't speak at the event you were at because you couldn't make it up the stairs. So you had to cancel your remarks. I mean, this is like, how could we mock Joe Biden and not hold Mitch McConnell and Kay Granger to the same account? More than Matt Gaetz, Kay Granger is to blame for this, Sean. She's the head of the Appropriations Committee. This is a woman who's been a politician for over 30 years. She told Donald Trump, I got this guy. His name is Chris Putnam. He's going to beat me. The polling shows Chris, he's America first. He's claiming he's running around Texas 12, claiming to be America first. And our polling, his polling, they show him up a few points. I'm going to lose. We all know you're going to be impeached over this January 6th thing. I got your back if you endorse me. Donald Trump goes, all right, Kay. And he endorses her. And she beats Putnam like by 12. And Putnam's at like 42 still. I mean, he gets a good share of the vote, and he didn't have the money that she has. I mean, she's got like, what's that defense contractor who backs her? And they're not this time, by the way.
Lockheed Martin,
Raytheon. Lockheed. Thank you. Lockheed is not backing Kay this time, even though I don't know if she knows that yet, but I do. Sorry, Kay, you're not getting that money. So in any event, she goes home, pretends she's sick, Sean, and refuses to vote by proxy against impeachment. She disappeared. She screwed the president.
That's unexcusable.
Over.
It's inexcusable.
Here we are. I've had her opponent on the show before. I know him actually. He's a personal friend, but I'm not bringing it up because of that. I'm bringing it up because she's a piece of trash. And if the trash doesn't get taken out, nothing's going to change, folks. Nothing's going to change. They're going to stab Donald Trump in the back again, like they stabbed him in the back for his first term, like they stabbed Ronald Reagan in the back, by the way. Ronald Reagan almost was impeached himself. A lot of people don't remember this. They almost got him because of the Iran-Contra scandal, but they constantly screwed him. John McCain screwed him on taxes. Went to the White House. I got your back, Mr. President. Went right back to the House and voted no. I mean, this is how these people are. And then the Department of Education. We're always talking about the impact that, indoctrination has had on our country, Sean, moving forward. Like Democrats are now reaping the benefits of decades of indoctrination of white voters who can afford degrees, right? They're reaping the benefits of that. None of that would have even been an issue if they didn't screw over Ronald Reagan on the Department of Education. I'm saying the silver lining, this is a long-winded way of saying, if the silver lining for me is just that we identified some of these people and basically smoked them out. We smoked them out. We threw Willie Pete in their hole, Sean, and made them come out patting their butt,
I mean, look, you're right. I mean, ultimately, if this, I mean, you're right. You're right. And I think that there still is there's a strong chance that we could end up with a real good conservative speaker. Again, I'm very afraid of the squish option, what I call the squish option. Yeah. But you're right. And another big plus here is that we do identify the people that probably need to go, and primarying those folks and getting them out does make our party stronger. But then it begs the question is like, can people, if they're being primaried from the right, can they win in those districts? And by the way, not every one of these 20 are in swing districts. And when I say eventually swing district people or in Biden plus districts are going to get fired up, I'm not even necessarily referring to the 20 that are voting against Jim Jordan. A lot of these people that voted against Jim Jordan and are like in R plus 20 districts. So why? And I'll tell you the history of all this is, and a lot of this, like people blame Scalise for this because, way back when John Boehner was speaker and was working with the Democrats in the Senate to advance a budget that had a lot of Democrat priorities in it, Steve Scalise was like kind of like John Boehner's muscle back then and gutted what was the very, very, very conservative Republican Study Committee. And a lot of people who are traditionalists in the U.S. House of Representatives, Freedom Caucus people like Jim Jordan, have these, and the Freedom Caucus rose out of the destruction of the Republican Study Committee. They blame Scalise for that. And so a lot of the news that you see that is breaking about, like maybe there's some contention between Jim Jordan and Scalise, is over that feud that happened a long time ago when John Boehner used Steve Scalise to basically disband what was back then the very Republican Study Committee still exists, but it used to be far more conservative than it was, especially way back then. And that the dismantling of the Republican Study Committee back then gave rise to the Freedom Caucus, which was diametrically opposed to House leadership for a long time. Jim Jordan was a very famous member of the Freedom Caucus, and that's why you see this feud between Jim Jordan and Scalise break last night, and why some people, these traditionalists in the U.S. House of Representatives, aren't voting for Jim Jordan because they're Scalise loyalists. So there's a lot to this.
Yeah, you're right. I got to give you an update here. Granger, again, in that last vote, voted for Scalise.
Was there another vote?
He lost. No, they went into recess. They did a vote while we were talking. They went into recess now. There was 22 against Jordan. Spartz flipped to Jordan. Womack voted for Scalise. Stauber voted for Bruce Westerman, which is just, I mean, again, seriously, Don Bacon again voted for McCarthy. This is just not serious. We're not a serious party. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not seeing serious people rise to the occasion that this time calls for.
And see, Rich, this is my point. And this is why chaos is dangerous. Because let me ask you this.
Police, these people.
Let me ask you a question, Rich. Are the Democrats are they a graveyard serious party? Not policy wise. Of course, they're idiots, but at least are they united and dangerous?
They are full believers, true believers, deadly serious about what they intend to accomplish. And
that's exactly
by the way,
right.
Yesterday, if for anyone who thinks, and this is why some of these squishes also piss me off, if you think this will ever stop with Donald Trump, what they're doing and their plans for the rest of us, you're out of your mind. Two people,
100%.
Sheila Jackson Lee and Aguilar, both jumped up during the call yesterday and called Jim Jordan an insurrectionist.
Unbelievable.
Do you understand what that means? That means you want to charge Jim Jordan with sedition too? All right. You want to execute Jim Jordan? I mean,
they would in a second. I'm telling you, they would.
They would, Sean. Everyone needs to wake up. This is deadly, deadly serious. I'm on Timcast a couple weeks ago, and Cernovich is on and Cernovich goes, all over the place, but he's listen, they're going to kill us all if we don't elect Donald Trump and we don't, get more people, more America First people in Congress. They're going to kill us all. They're going to round us up. They're going to kill us all. And first question Tim asked me, he's like, you think Mike is being hyperbolic?
I've been on Timcast so many times, but you're right. But so listen, to everybody that's listening to me, I know a lot of people don't agree with me. I get it. That's fair. If people are saying in the comments, if it goes 30 votes, so be it. If we end up with Jim Jordan after 30 votes, so be it. Right. That's a great thing. It was worth it. Right. But the reality is when your enemy is dangerous and united and laser focused and you are not, that's dangerous. That is a weakness. It's just the truth. And, use a military analogy. If you're focused, if you're distracted from the mission, from the enemy that's out there trying to kill you, if you're not training, if you're not evolving, if you're not uniting to become a more effective unit and your enemy is laser focused on killing you, and then your mind is off somewhere about your girlfriend back home or maybe the Steelers football or Pirates baseball or something, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead.
You're thinking about Jody?
You're thinking about Jody.
Those people don't know what we're talking about. Should I tell them?
Yeah, tell them.
All right. So Jody is the. So listen, I wish it was true. Everyone was faithful when you go downrange. It doesn't work that way. I've seen a lot of broken hearts. I've seen a lot of friends who, unfortunately, that's the last thing you want to worry about is Jody. You know what? Your wife back home. And honestly, it's not a good thing. So all you can do is joke about it. And that's our joke. Yeah, that's our joke for it because you don't want to think about it. You can't think about it. It's like that. It'll get you killed. It'll get somebody else killed. So you might as well laugh. Right. And I'm sure you have.
Rich, of course you got to laugh about it. You have to laugh about it. But to your point, Rich, the game that we're playing is deadly serious. The stakes have never been higher. These politicians every cycle are like, this is the most important election of our lifetime. But this one really, really is. We live at an inflection point in American history on a very thin line between hope and darkness. And everything that people are saying in the comments, they're not wrong. Okay. I agree. I want conservative speaker. I don't really, hey, Kevin McCarthy's gone, whatever. The reality is, what do we do with it now? Okay. But none of us want a squish speaker. None of us want an Akeem Jeffries speaker. So we're united in that way. I'm also a fan of the idea of getting these people on the record, finding out who they are, and then primarying them if need be. Okay. I get all that, but I don't like when our team is fractured. I don't like that. And anything that distracts from the mission of dismantling the Democrat Party, I do not like.
Yeah, again, the soldier in me totally gets what you're saying. I do. The pollster in me says the party's got to be represented.
Absolutely does. Yeah, I agree.
It has to. But I was personally hoping that could be done through bad votes, and maybe this comes down to that it can't, though, Sean. So there hasn't been. I brought up one before. So take John Duarte, and they know they're in deep trouble. They're calling around trying to get his old primary partner, his primary opponent, who they did so dirty. They want him out now, helping him because of these bad votes and because of things he's been doing. They want him to come on board and tell voters it's all right. They didn't do that before, not since the 2020 midterms were going, to the general election mode. So they didn't think the bills supporting amnesty. They didn't think about the unlimited funding to Ukraine. None of that they took as a threat to them in a primary until now. And now they know they're in some trouble, yet they don't care because, I guess if you're them, or at least you're that one, if you're Valadeo, you're thinking you need McCarthy's money anyway. You need it or you're going to go down anyway. Adam Gray, Go look at the FEC reports, folks. He's already raised. He just announced and started fundraising. Sean, he's about to put 400 in the bank already, just like that. So that Democrat's coming out swinging, and they've already been running third-party ads against the Republican incumbent. I just, I don't know how this ends. We'll see how it ends. But the House is going into recess now. Damn, I kept you for a long time. The show's almost over, Sean. It's 1:50.
That's okay. I've sufficiently made your viewers mad enough.
No, you know what? Listen. My viewers, they got their own opinions, but they know
I love them. They're the best. They're the best.
Yeah. They know that I'm gonna have people on that don't agree with them. Listen, you agree with 95% of everything.
Oh my gosh, our end state objectives are exactly the same. We just disagree with the tactics along the way, and that's. But these debates and these conversations make our party stronger. Right. This is what I say. This is what I say often to people on the campaign trail. Like you and I, we ain't going to agree all the time, but these conversations make us better and make us stronger. We're able to better articulate our positions, and they need to be had. And this is why our party is fundamentally better than the Democrat Party, and why we're the party of we the people.
I'm having a debate in my own head right now too, because I really thought, and Laura and I have talked about this, I don't want anything to do with campaigns this cycle. And every cycle we get calls from people, and sometimes I'll take them, sometimes I won't. I don't, I really wanted to focus on the viewers and the audience, because if I do take on some things, it means I really don't have any business talking about that on a show, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm not public opinion strategies. I can't work for Ron DeSantis and then pretend to poll for NBC News, like, objectively.
Right. I know. I mean, I heard you talking about that in the lead-in. That does raise very serious ethical questions.
Oh my God. I mean, it's unbelievable. And what they do to get around it, Sean, is these like stupid joint polling operations. Like Anderson polls with a Republican for Fox. Like, so what? You still have clients that are going to be impacted by these decisions. If I end up polling for the Epoch Times again, then I'll just poll, for the Epoch Times and do my thing on the show and with my audience, and that's it. If I was to go and poll for a candidate, I got to take myself off the board. But I'm looking at all of this stuff, and at the very least, there's a line I can walk up to, like, here are the pieces that have to go, there's that line. I'm having a debate in my head right now about whether or not I want to get more involved in getting rid of some of these people, because I don't have any confidence in people's ability to do that. Like the Republican, there's a lot of good people on the MAGA side who are up and coming that are trying to replace the consulting class and help candidates. I'm still not confident in their ability to do that. Like, they're good people. They're not Jeff Rowe. They're not, some of the other ones out there that are not good people. They're not Karl Rove. They're good people and they're trying, but I'm not sure they're up to the task. So, like, in my mind, I always I'm having this battle with myself, because I'm just sick of telling the same story every year, brother. Doesn't it bother you? Every 2 years, every 4 years, it's like this never ending story that's on the same damn loop over and over again. And it never ends. Nothing changes. Donald Trump came along. I can't believe he did as much as he did with as many traitors sticking knives in his back as he had. It's just unbelievable to me. This time, if he's going to do it again, then he better do it with more. You better do it more Jacksonian. Like Jackson realized he needed to bring a wave of people in with him, or the system was going to bury him if he
Donald
didn't.
Trump's that's exactly right. I mean, his biggest mistake, Rich, and I, me, I love Donald Trump. I'm close with his family. His biggest mistake is not firing the top 10 people or just cleaning house at every one of these once lauded and trusted institutions that worked against him every step of the way for 4 years. And by the way, it's not an unprecedented thing to do. Barack Obama did that when he walked into the White House. Trump, that's next when Trump comes into the White House in 2024, that's step number one, is just get rid of all the entrenched bureaucrats. Has to happen.
He doesn't have to worry about re-election this time. He could just be Trump unchained, but some things have to go through the legislative process. And I'm telling you, no matter how many people I respect, I like, they're not, they're telling me some of these guys are just trying to get their footing. I just don't buy it. I don't. So like, and by the way, I'll name some. I'm a name caller, I'm not going to just, I'm not going to like generically talk about someone. Like I brought him up before. Duarte's a great one. Granger's a great one. Granger's been there forever. She's not getting her footing. She's just a piece of trash. She's got to go. Duarte has been there one term. You try to give some people, but I know people who have tried to go to him and say, what are you doing? What are you doing with these votes? You're going to get primaried, number one. Number two, you're making yourself look untrustworthy, to those who know you need to be trusted. He don't care, man. He obviously doesn't care. Like how many interventions? It's like trying to intervene with a drug addict, right? Like you put the show on, you hope they change their behavior, but ultimately it's in their power to truly change. He has shown no propensity or even willingness to want to change. And he's going to be that guy who, when Trump comes in and gets into a fight with an FBI director or something, or needs to take out some rogue prosecutor who thinks they're above the executive branch, he's not going to be that guy, who's going to help. And there's too many of them. They're everywhere. Go through the roll call, folks. Go through the roll call and look at some of the comments people made on the floor. And by the way, some of them you may respect. John James, if you're in Michigan, this is a man who asked you not once, but twice for your vote and support. And here he is voting for let's see, John James, he did it yesterday. But today, John James voted for Candace Miller. For those who don't know who that is, she was a House Republican from Macomb County. She now works as a public works commissioner. This is not serious, Sean. These are not. I know
it's unbelievably stupid. Unbelievably stupid.
That's somebody who the president supported through and through. Disgusting.
It is. I completely agree with you. 100%. You're not. I mean, again, I'm sitting in the U.S. House of Representatives, 100% supporting Jim Jordan. I just. This process makes me so mad because I think it makes us weaker. It's inexcusable why these people are doing what they're doing.
People who disagree with you, they should know this. There is no, we're already starting to see the beginning of it, but give it a little bit longer. Give this a week or two more, and you're going to start to see the Trump +4s and the Democrats +6s on the generic ballot. You're going to see that. That's going to happen. Whether, I'm just telling you. I don't know if you want to hear it. I'm not trying to sway you either way. I'm telling you, he's already running 4 or 5 points ahead in some of these new polls coming out. He's the Mike Shepard. He said the most likely outcome right now is a Trump White House win and Democrats retain the Senate and control the House. That would be absolute disaster for a President Trump. But it
would be a disaster. It would be a disaster. It really would.
It would just be an executive thing, Sean. Tell people we're getting. Oh, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
No. Listen, I mean, I've got a show that Rich comes on the show. I have like maybe one guest, maybe two, but Rich comes on like every couple of weeks. We do this and like absolutely love this guy. I love the audience. I love all of you who are in the chat. And yes, I try to read the live chat because what you all say really, really matters to me, and I take it very seriously. So I host a show on Rumble. It live streams exclusively on Rumble over on Battleground Live from Monday through Friday from 5 to 6. And you are coming on tonight, and I'm psyched to further this conversation even more. And my audience absolutely loves you. So it's going to be an awesome show. You're coming on, I think, at like 5:15, and we're going to do like another 45 minutes on probably a lot of the stuff that we talked today, but also like the RFK factor. I want my people to know, like
that's right.
Some people were complaining in the live chat that all this like insider baseball politicking got us away from the numbers. So maybe we'll talk about the numbers, like do a deep dive tonight.
5 o'clock on Rumble will give you the numbers. All right.
Yeah, that's it. So follow us over there and see the savage Rich Barris on my show tonight. But yeah, man, this was great. Thank you for having me, Rich.
And Sean, where can people follow you on like Twitter, Truth Getter? You're the same, unlike me. You're the same across the board. I wish I was.
Yeah, it's Sean Parnell USA on Twitter, at Sean Parnell USA on Getter. I'm on Facebook, official Sean Parnell on Instagram, and I think I'm Sean Parnell USA on Truth Social as well.
Awesome for coming on, Sean. Sorry for keeping you for like an hour.
It's all good.
Minutes, dude. It just happened.
I know. It's fun though. It's fun.
I owe you, brother. I owe you.
Anytime, man. Anytime. I told you, anytime you want me on, I'll be there for you.
All the best, man. I'll see you in a couple hours. All right.
All right. See you later. Take care, guys.
Sean Parnell, ladies and gentlemen. That's look, that's the military man in him. Don't divide yourselves. Don't divide yourselves. And I see that point. Absolutely, I do. And I do worry about how this is going to all end up. But again, there's a lot of internal conflict going on with me because the pollster in me is saying the party has got to be more representative. The pragmatist is telling me that that wasn't going to happen until the 2024 election. However, like putting my political strategist hat on, what issue was going to give potential primary challengers the wedge they needed to go after some of these incumbents more than this. So for instance, John O'Shea, who's running against Kay Granger, he's got the endorsement of Ken Paxton. I think Kash Patel did endorse him. But it's starting to snowball and the electorate wants to get rid of Kay, but there's a lot in the media world. Kay Granger is the head of the Appropriations Committee, and they look at that because they're stupid DC people, and they look at that like, oh, she'll be hard to beat, let alone that. Forget that Chris Putnam almost beat her, and he did so even with Donald Trump endorsing her. And she would have went down if that endorsement didn't come up. It was only until now that I started to get calls like, hey, how can I reach John O'Shea? I want to have him on. Hey, we got to get rid of Kenny Granger. Who's that guy, who's running against? That was only this moment that stuff like that really happened, because now I swear Kay's running to lose. So to what do they call it, Laura? Smoke them out, or maybe you're like quail hunter. All right. You flush them out in order to get these people to come out of the woodwork, because one thing Republicans are really good at posing as conservatives. They're really good at hiding within the conference and not exposing. Paul Ryan ran around in the House of Representatives with the reputation that he was super conservative, way more conservative than most. How long did he get away with that fake reputation? Even though if you ever looked at his voting record, he voted like John Boehner. He voted like every other rhino. But they're very good at pretending they're what they tell the voters, because none of these pricks ever run every year, Laura. Oh, I'm 80% MAGA. That's good enough. I'm conservative 72% of the time, but that's good enough. Have you seen Kay Granger's record with the scorecard, the Texas scorecard? It's horrible. Nothing about her is Democratic. All right, I see the red light blinking, which means we're about out of juice. All right, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Social Getter. Of course, if you like the video, go ahead and, like the video, share it far and wide. Sign up to peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. That's the best place. That's where you get everything. Let me plug it in. I don't have a problem. Wow, that battery lasts a long time on that new camcorder, Laura. Holy moly. That's where you'll get everything first. As far as polling goes, we're going to start, like I said, doing a lot more streams on there once we get this setup situated. It is the hub for all things People's Pundit. All right, so that's the best place to go and follow and support us if you want to do that. All right, of course, everybody out there in the chat, thank you so much for your support, super chats, your shares, all of that. Thank you for Sean Parnell, my buddy, for coming on and spending an hour and 45 minutes discussing this stuff. I'm so glad he did come on too, because he said something before with this propaganda, especially during war, which is really dangerous. Ignorance is dangerous. And you've heard me say that a lot. But, we have lawmakers going to the floor of the House of Representatives saying things like, that was an airstrike, not an IED. That was Israel launching an airstrike on a hospital. That was not a misfired rocket. And then, somebody who knows what they're talking about, Sean comes on and says, you know what? Makeshift rocket launchers malfunction 30% of the time. And by the way, it can be more than that. You ever built a potato gun, for crying out loud? I'm serious. I'm trying to give you an analogy. I'm so glad to have him on. Thanks so much again to Sean. Looks like we're going to have some more guests coming on Friday. Talk about the legal stuff. That's always great. We're going to get Devin on here soon too. We got a lot of stuff lined up. All right, so don't miss it. Friday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Keep you up on the vote. House is in recess now. There's not a whole lot we can do about it until they come back. Jordan has to decide whether he wants to take this back to the floor or try to do this in private. I'm not sure which way he's going to turn out. I really don't know, but we're going to see. All right. All right, folks. That's it for me. We're going to be doing the Rust Belt poll real soon. Locals. I'm going to shoot it out. It's going to look a lot like the National, only it's going to be the Rust Belt. All right. Giving you a heads up. Don't forget to support the Public Polling Project. Thank you, guys. Thank you as well. If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't be us. So thanks for the appreciative comment. See you on Friday, folks. Q&A.